Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In today's video, I will be talking about another set of questions for SRE interviews. And the list of questions that I'm discussing today are very critical for an SRE role. And I got the list of questions from a post by a gentleman named Mohammad Elias. So thanks to him for posting these questions, which he faced himself in an interview. Okay, so let's start the video. So imagine you are working as an SRE and you have been given a task of designing an architecture for a microservices based application. How would you design it to handle sudden traffic spike in a cloud environment? So here the interviewer hasn't mentioned anything in particular. He just wants to understand the approach as an SRE to design such an application or such an architecture for a microservices based application. All right, so I have given a very detailed answer that you can understand conceptually, and accordingly you can answer in an interview. So let's take a look at the answer as well. So let's assume that we are deploying this application to an AWS EKS cluster. Okay, since the interviewer did not give me any particular platform, okay, I'm taking the example that closely relates to my current experience and profile. So I'm taking the example of EKS cluster here. Okay, so to handle sudden traffic spikes in a microservices based application on AWS EKS, I would design a scalable, resilient, that means tolerant to faults, and self-healing architecture using best practices like auto scaling, load balancing, and observability tools. So the goal is to make sure that the system can grow quickly when there's a high demand, and at the same time it's able to shrink back as well. So this shrink back is again a very critical thing because you have to take care of the costs as well. Because when there's a high demand, you are increasing the number of resources, or you are using some high-end configuration for your resources that is going to increase your cloud bill. But at the same time, when there's no need of that, then your system should be able to shrink back as well. That means that the number of resources should be reduced, and it should be in accordance with your current traffic spike, or you can say the current user load on the application. Okay, because you have to save some cost also for your project or for your company. Okay, so to handle sudden traffic spike, we can utilize the following approaches. Approach number one is we can deploy a resource called horizontal pod autoscaler, or also called HPAs, within the cluster, which is going to automatically increase or decrease the number of pods based on one of the metrics like CPU, memory, or any other metric like request count. So what will happen, this HPA when deployed within a cluster, you will use it with one of the metrics, and you can use the threshold of that particular metric to increase or decrease the number of pods. For example, uh, if I'm using CPU utilization as my metric, so I can set something like this. Whenever the average CPU utilization hits 80%, two additional pods should be deployed to handle additional traffic spike. In this way, you can increase the number of pods whenever the average CPU utilization goes over 80%. Similarly, you can use it to decrease the number of pods as well. Okay. Now, in approach number two, I'm talking about scaling of your nodes. So we can utilize cluster autoscaler for scaling the number of nodes within the cluster, because when you are creating these new pods, okay, in approach one, those pods will need resources on the nodes available so that they can be scheduled. So in case the nodes does not have the right resources, the pods will be, I mean, the pods will not be scheduled. So to counter that, you can use cluster autoscaler to scale the number of nodes itself on which the additional pods can be scheduled. Okay, so this cluster autoscaler is going to add more EC2 nodes to your managed node group within the EKS cluster. Here I'm taking the example of managed node group with EKS cluster. Okay, also you can use it to scale down unused nodes when the traffic reduces. So if you see in approaches 1 and 2, we can both increase the number of pods and we can decrease it. Okay, similarly with cluster autoscaler, we can increase the number of EC2 nodes in the cluster and we can decrease it as well. Okay, so these two are one of the most popular approaches that are there to handle the sudden traffic spike. Okay, then the point number 3 is using load balancing with AWS ALB or application load balancer. So ALB and ingress, it is a perfect combo to handle the traffic distribution across healthy pods, and it can also avoid the distribution of traffic on overloaded pods. Okay, so once again, these three are one of the most important approaches that you can take to handle sudden traffic spike within your cluster. Point number 4 is observability, which is again a very critical aspect of an SRE role. In observability, we take care of logs and metrics from the application and use it to create various type of alerts so that we are proactively informed about anything uh, abnormal that is happening within our infrastructure or within our application, because we should be able to see what's happening inside, right? So this observability runs on a principle that you cannot fix anything what you cannot see. Okay, so observability is your eyes and ears. So in observability, we can use AWS's CloudWatch service, or we can set up our own Prometheus and Grafana tool stack. So Prometheus is used as a data source, which is used to collect metrics from the applications, and then we can use Grafana to create different type of dashboards to see the particular metric, how your applications are performing. So all that we can track on Grafana visualization dashboards, which can be created using the Prometheus data sources. Once again, we can monitor our pod metrics as well. So CPU and memory from the pod can be monitored, and we can also monitor the request latencies and any errors that are appearing in your application. So we can use observability platform to set up alerts for any traffic spikes, any failures, or when auto scaling doesn't trigger. So observability, once again, it gives us this platform where we can create our alerts that we can use to monitor the performance of a particular application. All right, so these are the 4 points that are critical to handle any sudden traffic spike in your infrastructure. All right, then question number 2 is, how would you aggregate logs from multiple services for centralized log analysis so that it can help you in troubleshooting issues? So log aggregation, once again, is very critical to an SRE role, especially, and we have various tools available to be used. It depends what is our exact requirement, and we can choose a particular tool to aggregate logs from all the services and keep it on one central platform, and then we can query those logs to identify and troubleshoot any issues that are currently happening in our application. So let's take a look at the answer. So we use a centralized logging system to collect logs from many services so that we can troubleshoot issues faster. We can spot any particular patterns or errors that are currently happening, and we can monitor system health in real time. So this answer is divided into several parts which actually happen, or you can say you have to configure as part of your log aggregation platform. The first thing is log generation. So every app or microservice running on your system will be writing logs. Example, it can be any log. It can be like the user has logged in, so it's an informational log. Or if it's an error log like payment failed, card declined, or database connection timeout. So I'm giving just a few examples here that these are the type of logs that you want to capture. Okay, the services are going to write certain logs that will be collected via different agents that you can install or configure in your system. So we call them log shippers or agents, So we can configure software agents beside the services that are able to collect logs and then can send those logs to a centralized location. Here I've given some examples like a Promptail, which is an agent used with uh, Prometheus to collect logs and then send it to some platform. Then you can use other tools like FluentD or Logstash, and there are some other tools as well. So all these different software tools or agents are used to collect logs from applications. Okay, so point number one is that your application should be able to write logs, and then you will install or configure the log shippers or agents to collect those logs from those applications and send it to a centralized location. So these agents, they can read logs from files or containers, they can format them as well, and then they are able to send it in a particular format that is easily understandable. Then how would you configure your centralized storage and processing? So all logs are sent to a centralized logging system. Once again, I'm giving some examples like Elasticsearch, which is very common, which is used to search and index logs. Then you have Amazon CloudWatch logs as well. If you're using AWS, you can use this, or you can use other tools like Splunk, Datadog, or Grafana Loki, which is really getting popular these days. Okay, which is a very great, or you can say, a tool with a lot of advanced features right now for log aggregation, which is easy to use by anyone. And you can query your logs and you can use that information to troubleshoot any type of issues in your application. So this is where your logs get stored, they get searchable, and they are structured as well. And you can find different log filters, okay, by a service name, by error information, or by time window. So here I am going to show you how you can use a tool like Grafana to search for a particular type of log, okay, when the logs are available from different applications. So which means that the your applications is writing logs and they're using the log agents to ship them to a centralized location like Grafana Loki. Okay, so this is a free Grafana tool that you can use to explore how it works, and you can get used to the interface of Grafana as well. Okay, so let me just open this in a browser window and show it to you. So this is a location where you can go and you can look for different type of options available. For example, we are looking for logs at the moment, so you can open this logs option, and you have some. Okay, it's not going to work in this browser, so let me just copy and paste from here and go here. So this is a free Grafana playground which you can use to learn a lot about Grafana, how it works, how the interface looks like. We have some demo applications as well that we can use to search the logs of. All right, so here you can see the data source is chosen as Loki Nginx logs, but we do have other data sources as well. But here I'm talking about only Grafana Loki. So this is the data source that you have to choose, which means that all the apps which are sending their logs to this Grafana Loki data source are going to be used here. Then I'm using this last 15 minutes time window here in UTC time zone, and here is where you can run those log search queries. Okay, for example, you can search the logs with a service name. So for example, I'm using web app 1. So it's going to show me the logs only for web app 1 in the last 15 minutes. Then if I have to use some other labels as well or fields as well, so you can click here and you can get the list of different type of fields available for you to filter your logs. Because if you see here, there is a lot of information here. Okay, a lot of logs, but we don't want all the logs. We just want to have access to some of the logs maybe. Okay, because it's really difficult to search these logs line after line. So it's important that you're able to search the logs effectively so that you only look at the logs that you need to troubleshoot a particular type of issue. So if you click here, you can get all the field labels. For example, I want to see the error. So we can choose this error level expected equals error, and now the logs are filtered only for the errors. Okay, as you can see, so the error level has been chosen to error, and logs have been filtered out. So in this way, you can do a lot of different filtering here. So this is a very good platform to get used to Grafana tool. Okay, it's free of cost. You just have to have access to this URL on a browser. Okay, use Chrome because I just use it in Firefox and I got this error. So I try to use this in Chrome and it's going to work. Okay, so I just want to give you a very high level overview of this Grafana tool, how you can use this data source of Grafana Loki to run a different log search queries, okay, depending on your particular use case. Okay, so this is where you can use all that. Then the point number 4 is visualization and alerting. So you don't want to read raw logs all day. So we can connect our storage to a dashboarding tool like a Kibana for Elasticsearch or Grafana with Loki or CloudWatch. So the tool that we just saw is a Grafana tool with a Loki as the data source here. Okay, so this is how it's going to look when you actually install it in a real-time environment as well. The interface is going to be quite similar to this one. So you can use this to visualize all the logs, okay, and then you can use it to create alerts as well, right? So so here I've given some examples like you can search logs with Google like queries, you can create visual dashboards, you can set up alerts. For example, you want to have an alert like alert me if we get 50 errors in 50 minutes. Okay, so these type of alerts can be created in a visualization tool like Grafana. Okay, so this is how you are going to have a centralized logging solution created for your application or for your multiple applications, and this is how you have to go step by step. Okay, then question number 3 is, imagine you are managing a production Kubernetes cluster and one of your critical services suddenly becomes unresponsive. What steps would you take to diagnose and resolve the issue? If you see this question, this is like the most important question in an SRE world. How would you troubleshoot a production issue in a Kubernetes cluster? Okay, so once again, this approaches can be slightly different from one company to the other or one platform to the other. Here I'm taking the example of an EKS cluster, and what I have been doing in my organization, I'm taking that same example here. Okay, so first thing is you have to stay calm and acknowledge the impact. Okay, unresponsive means that something is broken or it is very slow, and very likely the users are also impacted. So the first thing is to quickly check, is it affecting any customers? So for that you can you might have configured some monitoring already in place, so you can use those email alerts or dashboards or any user reports that might have come through to your email, all that, to see what impact is actually there on the users or on the customers. Then you will be looking at, were there any recent changes done to this application that might have caused this, and how severe it is. Is it like a partial outage or a full outage? So the first thing is, it's important to understand the impact of the issue. Then step number 2 is you have to verify the service status with a kubectl. So you can quickly check the status of any service using kubectl, or you can use a UI tool as well called Lens. Okay, so if you're using kubectl, then you can run this command, kubectl get pods -n, then the name of the space in which your application runs. This is going to give you the list of all the pods with their current status right now. So it's going to show how many pods are running, or if there's any pod actually running for your application or not, or are they stuck in any errors like crash loop back off, image will back off, or it is in pending status. So all that you can see quickly using this command, kubectl get pods. Then step 3 is you can check the pod logs as well. Okay, if you want to go deeper into particular pod. So you can check the pod logs as well with, once again, you can use kubectl CLI tool, or you can use the Kubernetes UI tool called Lens. So you can run this command, kubectl logs, name of the pod, and then specify the namespace in which the pod is running. So in this command, I'm going to look for any errors or exceptions like database timeouts, missing files, failed dependencies, any memory leaks. So all this information could be available inside your pod logs. Then you can also look for certain shutdown messages, if any. So you're going to get a lot of clue about what's wrong inside your pod, okay, for a particular application. So these are some of the steps that I take whenever any issue is reported to us. Then another important command is the describe pod command. So you can use this command called kubectl describe pod, name of the pod, and specify the namespace. And if you just scroll to the very last, you will be able to see some events that have occurred related to your pod application. Okay, so I mean, you can see some logs like failed to pull image, or some readiness or a liveness probe has failed, or it can be some some node resource issues as well. So all that information, if it is if it has happened with your pod, you can get that information using the describe command as well. Then once again, as I mentioned, the monitoring tools are really critical to an SRE role. So whatever tools you are using, okay, so here I'm talking about the log aggregation part. So you can use log aggregation visualization tools like Grafana, and I mean, you'll be able to search the logs for a particular error, okay, as I just showed you in Grafana. And you can search those logs with a particular service name. You can choose the time window. You can choose any keywords to filter the log. So in this way, you can identify the exact issue that has happened with your application, and accordingly, you can troubleshoot and resolve it. Then point number 6 is you can check the service and networking as well with kubectl CLI tool or the UI tool called Lens. So maybe the pod is running fine, but the users cannot reach it. So I will check the Kubernetes service status as well. So you can do kubectl guest svc, specify the namespace to check the status of the service. You can also use the describe command with the service name as well. It's going to give you some additional event information that has happened with a particular service. Okay, so this is going to confirm that the service has endpoints. That means that the service is still pointing to healthy ports, the ports are correct, or the networking isn't broken. So all this information is available when you run these commands. Then point number 7 is you can also do a manual reachability test, like hitting the endpoint directly from inside the cluster. So this is the command that you can use to check the endpoints are actually working or not within the cluster. So it's going to help you validate, is the service internally reachable, or is it returning a proper response, or is it timing out? Then to fix the issue, if the issue is with a failed pod, so we can just restart a failed pod. This is the command to do it. You just have to delete that particular pod, and your replica sets are going to create another pod with the same configuration to see if the new pod is coming healthy or not. Then if it is related to a recent change, we will try and roll back to the last successful version to restore the issue. Okay, so suppose you have made some changes to your image, your container image that you have deployed for your application. So the new version might be causing some issues. So it is always best to roll it back to the last successful version and see if this fixes the issue. Then you can also scale the replicas up or down if it's a load issue. So you can scale the number of pods up if it's related to resource issue. Okay. Then you can also change other configuration parameters depending on your investigation. So all this is possible to fix a particular type of issue. It depends what kind of issue you are able to identify, and accordingly you have to troubleshoot and resolve that. Then after you have resolved the issue, it's important to do RC as well. So once again, it depends. Not every company would do that because it takes a lot of time and effort and manpower as well. But generally speaking, if you want to avoid a particular issue again, we will try to do a root cause analysis on that so that we are able to identify that to the root and we are able to fix it. Okay, so we can find out why did it break, if was it related to code or infra or some other configuration, or it was just a bad deployment, and what can we do to prevent this in the future. And we can also write a postmortem report, which is going to be a document explaining what happened, what we did, what we learned, and what action items to fix and automate that. Okay, then question number 4 is, during a deployment your CI/CD pipeline fails unexpectedly, what would be your approach to troubleshoot and fix the problem? So the answer could be, the first thing is that we want to stop doing any further deployments using that particular pipeline till it is fixed, and we have to inform our team about it. Okay, so we just need to inform the team that a particular pipeline is failing and we should not do any further deployments till we are able to fix that issue in the pipeline. To identify the failed step and related job, look for failure logs. So here I'm taking the example of GitLab because I use GitLab in my current project in my current company. So in GitLab, when a pipeline fails, you can look for the stage where the pipeline has failed, and you can look for the failure logs as well, which I'm going to show you right now in a demo. So you can go to the this GitLab failed log job logs, and you can look for the failure logs as well. So to demonstrate this, once again, there's a free GitLab playground that is available that you can use to get used to the GitLab interface. So let me go to that playground right now. So this is the playground. It's gitlab.com. You just have to log in either using your email ID. You can create an account, or you can use your GitHub ID as well to log into it, and you can create your own project, or you can explore some already available public projects. Okay, so let me click on this. It's going to list some public projects already available, and I'm going to show you how a failed pipeline looks in GitLab, and how you can look for the failure logs. So I can click on the first project here, admin old, and I can see there's a merge request here. If you click on it, so you can look at this commit request. So it's a commit, and if you just scroll down a bit, you can see the pipeline as well. Okay, and this pipeline has failed once. The symbol means it has failed, and this is the pipeline ID. So if you click on it, you can see the different stages that are configured in this pipeline. Okay, so this is like a perfect example to see. So this pipeline has just one job actually, which happened on this pipeline, and if you click on this, you can look at all the failure logs as well. So we know that this pipeline failed, and this is how you can look at the failure logs in a GitLab pipeline. Okay, so it's a very good platform, and it gives us a lot of details around the success and the failure that happen within a pipeline. Okay, as you can see, and if you scroll to the very last, you can see the error job failed exit code 1, exit status 1. Okay, but once again, it depends from one issue to the other. You have to look at other logs as well that happened, other log entries, and accordingly you have to identify what type of issue is happening. You also have to look at what changes were done, and if the changes were done correctly, or we have to make some other corrections to that. So all that is possible using this GitLab pipeline platform. Okay, so this is how a failed job within a pipeline in GitLab looks like. Okay, and this is how it looks in real time as well. If you're working on a production application as well, the interface is exactly the same. Okay, so this is how you can look for some error messages within the failure jobs on a GitLab pipeline. Now let's go back to our questions. Okay, so as I showed you, you can look for failure logs in the GitLab pipeline. And the errors, it could be syntax errors in the code or configuration. It can be missing environment variables. It can be issues related to authentication or permissions. It can be some failed test cases. It can be related to container image pull or build failures. It depends. So all these type of different errors are available in a GitLab pipeline. Okay, so it's easier to identify this within the pipeline itself. Then what we try to do, what I try to do, I try to rerun that same job again. So if I go back to my GitLab here, let's see if we have the option to rerun the job. So here I'm not getting the option, but generally what you will see an option of retrying the job also, okay, which is not available for me, maybe because I don't have the right permission, or maybe this job is like that you cannot retry it. So generally you will see an option of retrying this job as well. So this step will be repeated because sometimes it's a very minor issue. Sometimes the job may fail. So it's always good to just give it another try if it succeeds or not. Okay, so that's what I do. Okay, the next is I'm going to check the last change that was merged, and I will also see if the changes that were done related to, I mean, if those changes were related to any configuration files like YAML files or config maps, or any JSON file was changed, or any shell scripts were changed or added. Okay, or was it just a code change? So all that you have to see and identify what kind of issue could it be. This is related to the failure log that you see inside your pipeline. Then you can also try to revert the last commit to see if it works, because you must have done some changes to your repo, and then you might have run the pipeline, and if it fails like that, then you can try to revert the last change and see if this fixes the issue. Then you know that the last changes that were done were not correct, and that is causing the pipeline to fail. Then you can also check the external Then you can also check the external dependencies as well. For example, if your container registry, which is running on a particular server, is up and running, I'm talking about the Docker registry or the container registry. If you're using ECR in AWS, then you should see that ECR, is not having any issues currently. So all that you can verify as well in terms of external dependencies on the pipeline. You can also check if AWS isn't facing any outages if you're using AWS platform. If you're using other platform to set up your CI server or pipeline server, in that case, you can check if any issues are happening currently on that particular platform. It can be Azure, it can be GCP, but in my case, I'm talking about AWS. Then also whatever different stages you have configured, if those stages have a backend server configured, so you have to verify that all those servers are not having any current issues that might result in the failure of the pipeline. Okay, so all that you have to configure. As an example, if you have a Jenkins server configured, for example, on an EC2 instance, and if that EC2 instance is having issues, your pipeline is going to fail. Okay, so this issue is not related to the pipeline, but it's related to the EC2 instance that is hosting your Jenkins server. So all these things you have to take care of to troubleshoot a particular pipeline failure issue. Then after you have identified and resolved the issue, it's always important, as I mentioned, to do the root cause analysis of it. So once you identify the real cause, fix it properly. Examples: if the issue was due to a hard-coded secret, you would like to move that secret to a secure vault. If a script failed due to a missing file, then you would want to update your pipeline to validate the dependencies first. Okay, just for example, I gave two here. I gave two examples here just to understand what kind of issues uh, happen when a pipeline fails. All right, so this is the answer to question number 4. If I talk about question number 5, how would you identify areas of unnecessary cloud spending, and what strategies would you use to optimize costs without sacrificing performance? So this is a part of cost optimization. Okay, how do you optimize costs? So as I mentioned, as an SRE, it is not just about the performance of the application, it is about the cost as well. Okay, so you need to have the right mixture of both to become a successful SRE. So the first thing is to identify where your money is being spent. To do that, you can utilize popular cost explorer tools. If I talk about AWS, you have AWS Cost Explorer. In GCP, you have something called as billing reports. In Azure, you have Microsoft Cost Management. So these tools help break down your cloud bill in terms of most expensive services that you're using, what is the cost region wise or zone wise, which teams or projects are driving the cost. So all this information is available in these different cost explorer tools. Then you can also follow a general routine checkup. Either it can be manual or you can create an automated script that is going to list all the resources that are currently configured or provisioned in your account, and you can get an automated email as well, like weekly or bi-weekly, so that you know what all resources are created and if all of those resources are actually utilized currently, or you can get rid of few to save some costs in your cloud bill. Okay, so this is to identify unused or idle resources. Idle resources, the most common examples are idle VMs. If I talk about AWS, if any EC2 instances that might have been created in the past to do some work, but if those instances are not in use, if they're just running in the idle situation, so in that case, you would want to delete those to save a lot of costs on your compute and storage. Also, if you have underutilized VM capacity, for example, you created one EC2 instance with 32 GB of RAM, but your application is only using like 8 GB of RAM. So once again, you are wasting a lot of resources and you are increasing your cloud bill as well. So right sizing resources is a very important aspect. Then any unused or unattached EBS volumes and snapshots in AWS that you might have created in the past, it's once again important to revisit that and see if you can get rid of some of the snapshots or the volumes which are not attached to any EC2 instances. And again, this is going to save a lot of cost for you. Then any S3 buckets or load balancers or any databases or any other resources that you see that might have been created, you would want to get rid of that to save a lot of costs. So once again, it's like a routine thing that you have to do as part of cost optimization. You should know what all resources are there in your account and if you're using all of those resources or not. If not, please get rid of them. This is going to save a lot of cost for your company. All right. Then once again, another important point is to have a robust tagging strategy, which is critical for cost optimization. So whatever resource you create, if you can mandate some tags that will be associated with all of your resources. For example, you can have tags like what kind of application it is. Is it a web application or is it a backend application or is it hosting a database, or who's the owner of the project? If it is the developer team who's the owner, or if it is the ops team who's the owner, in which environment is this running on? Is this related to dev, it is related to test, or is it related to prod? So all these different type of tags you can create, and this is going to uh, ensure that you are able to filter out the different resources, okay, using these tags. So this is going to show you the exact picture of where your resources are being created. Then also, so I did this in my previous organization. I got a project where I had to shut down a few EC2 instances in off hours because no users were using it. So I use a Lambda function to configure this with CloudWatch. So I was able to automatically shut down a few EC2 instances in off hours and start it again in the morning, in the business hours. So in this way, we were able to save a lot of compute costs on these EC2 instances. So these are some of the initiatives that you can take to save a lot of cost for your project. Okay, so once again, another thing is you can do, if you are doing some random development or testing, instead of using the on-demand instances in AWS, you can go for EC2 spot instances that are very cheap as compared to on-demand instances. Okay, and yeah, this is again going to save a lot of cost for you. Then if you're using auto scaling groups, it is important to use it smartly to add and remove instances based on your traffic needs. Okay, auto scaling, once again, it's a very important feature, but again, you have to use it smartly so that you're not overspending. Okay, so you have to have the mechanism to scale out and scale in the number of instances depending on your current traffic. For long-term apps, you can use reserved instances or savings plan with EC2. So in EC2, we have various pricing plans available. So suppose you have a server that you know that you're going to use for the next 3 years. So in that case, rather than using the on-demand instances, which are really expensive, you can go for another savings plan called reserved instances, or it's also called savings plan, which is going to reserve your capacity with EC2 for 3 years. And I think you're going to save like 60-70% of your VM cost. Okay, so this is another way of saving a lot of cost if you know that you're going to use that instance for multiple years in the future. Then you can also implement budgeting alerts for your teams or projects so that they are mindful of each resource that they create in the account. So you can set a budgeting alert on different teams using the tagging strategy. Okay, here, which is mentioned in point number 3. So whenever those teams create any resources, and if the budgeting exceeds, you're going to get an alert, okay, from AWS that this team has used all of its quota, and yeah, in that case you can just inform them. So these are some of the points that are really important as part of cost optimization as an SRE. So these are the 5 questions that I wanted to discuss. I'm going to come up with more videos on SRE interview question and answers. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover in this video. I hope you like this video. If you did, please hit the like button. Please share this with others, and please do subscribe to my channel. Bye for now.